All right, we'll start the webinar now. Thanks everybody for joining us today and welcome to this webinar. Thanks for taking the time out of what has been a very busy digital event week already for both defence innovation as well as for space. So thanks for taking the time out to join us to hear about our second iteration of the AGO Analytics Labs program. For those of you unfamiliar with webinars, there'll be a series of presenters over the next 20 to 30 minutes providing a background to the program. During this time, if you have any questions that come up, please type them in the Q&A window of Zoom. That's located with the other buttons, probably down in the bottom taskbar of Zoom, along with things like chat. This allows you to record your questions as you go, rather than remembering them for later when we get to the Q&A session. It also helps us group similar questions together as we go to answer them at once near the end of the session. For those panelists that are here today who haven't been part of a webinar before, please refrain from answering the questions immediately, as we'll leave those all up for now and we'll answer them all at the Q&A session at the end. Next slide, please. So the purpose of today's session is really to help any organisations who are interested in applying for a project through the AGO Analytics Labs program to have a strong understanding of the overall program direction and aims, but also to understand the drivers behind each of the individual challenges that are up there to help you better frame the proposals that you might put in through the program. So today we'll cover a background to the organisations driving this initiative and a brief introduction to the people who are online presenting. We'll take you through what the program wants to achieve and the challenges from the subject matter experts that we have online. We'll also discuss the process from here, and there'll be some extensive time at the end for the question and answers. I'm Phil Delaney. I'm the Chief Innovation and Delivery Officer at FrontierSI, and I'm the Project Director for this program as it runs over the next 12 months or so. Laura?
Hi all, I'm Laura Spellbrink. I'm the Program Manager for the 2020 AGO Labs program with FrontierSI.
And Scott?
Yes, good morning. So my name's Scott Loney. I'm an AGO project manager working in its capability development area. I'm here with a number of other AGO stakeholders and analysts. Some of the subject matter experts we'll be hearing from later on during this presentation, being Eden, Kieran and Mick, will talk through some of the specific challenge topics. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Next slide, thanks. So for those of you who don't know FrontierSI, we are a partner-based not-for-profit organisation focused on growing the size and impact of the space and spatial industries in Australia and New Zealand. We sit at the nexus between government, research and industry to help bring innovative ideas through to real-world products and services. And we help bridge both communication and collaboration gaps along the way. So AGO within the Department of Defence has been one of our partners since our founding in 2003. So that's all from me. I'll hand over to Scott to talk a bit about AGO.
Thanks. So the Australian Geospatial Intelligence Organisation, AGO, it's obviously a part of the Department of Defence. Its mission is to provide geospatial intelligence, referred to as GeoInt, specifically to the ADF and more generally to the Australian government. Now, AGO tends to categorise its operations into three different areas. So there's collection, analysis and dissemination. So collection includes the acquisition of open source data, commercial imagery, topographic and cartographic products. And of course, being an intelligence agency, it's also got some classified sources as well. The analysis component is really what we're here today to talk about with AGO Labs. So we'll look at that a little bit later on. And the dissemination then, as the slide suggests, is what AGO does and how it forwards its analytic products to assist defence and government with a variety of planning, ADF operations, intelligence assessments, and so forth. And if you're interested about AGO, you can find more about it on the web at defence.gov.au/AGO. Next slide, Laura. Thanks. So earlier this year, Defence released its GeoWint strategy goals for 2030. And I just wanted to highlight that within that, 3 of those 5 goals are really being met quite neatly by what we're doing with the AGO Analytics Labs. So from an innovation component, what we're looking at for AGO Labs is generally machine analytics, which is a catchphrase covering automation, artificial intelligence, data mining, machine learning technologies. We're looking at increasing our own skills development. And we're really hoping with AGO Labs that by having our SMEs work with industry and academia, effectively some of your skills and knowledge will kind of transfer to us by osmosis. And also looking to develop new partnerships with industry and academia. So AGO has a number of ongoing deep partnerships with industry, and we're not looking to replace that. But we are looking to broaden both how we're interacting with industry and academia, and also conversely trying to educate industry on some of the needs of defence in general and AGO in particular. Next slide. Thanks, Laura. So to try and pull it all together, so there's a project called DEF 100, which is the main project that's looking to improve AGO's analytic function. And what it's doing is combining one of its main capability element goals to upskill analysts, work with industry and academia, and investigate potential new machine analytics solutions with this AGO Analytics Labs, which we also call, obviously, AGO Labs. So the way we intend to do this is to develop and present a number of relevant to us unclassified challenge topics. We're going to release those topics in 2 rounds. The first we've released already, and the second round will be next year, hopefully around the April or May timeframe. And we're hoping that interested parties will respond to the challenge topics with a proposal that we'll then assess and shortlist. So AGO is planning to fund up to $100,000 to engage the shortlisted organisations for them to demonstrate an approach to these challenge topics, one of these challenge topics. So 1 approach per topic. It's possible that we might fund more than 1 approach per topic, which is what we did last year with AGO Labs. We had 2 very interesting approaches to one of the topics, so we ended up funding 2. But rule of thumb is we'll have 1 funded participant for each of those topics. The responses themselves and then the approaches, we're looking to run them in roughly 3 to 6 month iterations. And there should be a total of 3 now and 3 in future topics to obviously add up to 6 overall challenge topics. Now, AGO is going to work with FrontierSI to assist us with a promotion, engagement, labs methodology, and management mechanisms. In particular, Frontier will be the ones that will establish the subcontracts with successful applicants. And that way, we all get to avoid the lengthy Commonwealth procurement processes. Next slide. Thanks, Laura. So what we're looking for in a proposal, I should mention that FrontierSI has posted a template for proposal responses on their website. But as per the slide, we're looking for some clarity on the approach that you and your partners are looking to take to meet the challenge topics. We're looking for innovative approaches. So we're really hoping that the various responses will be able to demonstrate something that's new to AGO, and when we don't claim to be the be-all and end-all when it comes to machine analytics in the geospatial arena. So it may not be new necessarily to industry, but it may be new to us. The challenge topics that we'll be outlining today, and there's also some more information on the Frontier site, are really provided as objectives. We've also given some sample user stories, but we're not trying to be too prescriptive. We're willing to take input from yourselves and as well as provide direction. if there's better approaches to some of these challenge topics. So we expect that as part of your proposals, you should be able to provide an overview of your methodologies, timeframes, and deliverables. And just in terms of deliverables, again, we're not being too prescriptive. At a minimum, I would expect there'd be some form of a final write-up, some form of a final presentation. And we'd also be keen to see some form of a demonstrator and potentially also a test and evaluation plan associated with that demonstrator. We're also keen to see how you plan to work with our AGO subject matter experts, both for yourself to extract the required information you need, but also noting we do have an upskilling component to this. We'll be keen to see how we'll be able to, as I said before, by osmosis, upskill our staff. We're also interested in the next steps aspect of this. So what we're planning to do with these challenge topics is to find out a little bit more about different approaches. Now, there's no guarantee of ongoing work with any of this, but if there is to be some next steps or some advice you can give us on how we can approach turning potential approaches into capabilities, we'd be keen to hear about that. As part of this particular iteration of AGO Labs, so in addition to the initial $100,000 for each of the engagements, we also have an optional $50,000 if we think there might be some value in doing some additional, some additional testing with something that simulates an AGO style environment. Operational testing, I think, is the term we're using for that. And I should also mention that the main focus for this is Australian and New Zealand industry and academia. So we're not saying that you can't have overseas partners and or COTS products, but yes, we're keen to engage with local industry and academia. Next slide, please, Laura. So we're starting out with three challenge topics today. I have to note that we seem to have inherited a history of giving each of these challenge topics dad joke style names, so apologies for that. The Frontier side, as I said, should have some more detailed description of these challenge topics. And as noted, we're interested to find out from yourselves how these topics could evolve and interested to find out what your creative approaches are to the topics. Now, we are presenting these obviously as unclassified discussion points. Later on in this presentation, please feel free to ask questions. Apologies in advance if we can't answer some of those, but you know, the only silly question is the unasked one, right? Now, what I'd like to do now is to move on to the real stars of the show, which is the AGO subject matter experts who are going to talk through the challenge topics. So, Laura, if you go into the next slide, and I'll hand over to Eden.
Awesome, thanks, Scott. Good morning, all. So for our first challenge, where the streets have no name, we are aiming to test how computer vision and geospatial information processing techniques can be used to generate road transport networks. So this comes from the need to understand the network after sudden change has occurred or regions where a rapid update is required. Examples of this could be natural disasters such as floods and earthquakes, where networks have changed drastically. We are hoping to understand two key things. Number one is the potential to autonomously generate these transport networks with associated network blockages identified. What we mean here is identifying network segments where that part of the network cannot be passed anymore. This could be a building that has collapsed onto a road or collapsed trees, for example. Number two is to understand how the differences between urban and rural environments affects said network generation performance. So in most instances, urban environments have clear defined networks, whereas rural environments often have differing road qualities and tree cover, which can hinder road visibility. That's all I have for challenge one. If there are any questions, please feel free to pass them through the QA function.
Thanks, Eden. If we could go on to the next slide, and Kieran.
Thanks, Scott. So the 2019 iteration of AGO Labs had a challenge that was looking into low-cost object detection models. And by low cost, we really were focused on lowering the training data requirements. So this challenge 2, I can't believe it's not native, is kind of similar to that. We retain the requirement for low-cost techniques, but add in one more variable, and that variable is imagery that's captured off nadir. As it says there, this is really a research-focused challenge, and a successful project would deliver a research report that quantifies how deviating from nadir affects object detection algorithms, but also improves our knowledge of techniques that can help to improve the effectiveness of algorithms on off-nadir imagery. Although there's GANs listed on that slide, we're not prescriptive about the techniques you use. We're really interested in seeing all the different ideas you come up with, and you certainly don't have to use GANs to be successful in this challenge. So I just thought I'd make that clear as well. That's all from me.
Thanks, Kieran. Topic 3, and Mick.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Last but not least, does this look fishy? So this challenge is looking at the automated classification of maritime track data. So there's a specific interest here in the data limitations and how they might affect the classification outcomes. So as a bit of a summary, AGO is interested in being able to identify vessel and activity types based on track records, such as, or including AIS data. Automated classification of vessel and activity, irrespective of reported type, can then be used to identify anomalies when compared with expected patterns of behaviour or other reported details. Obviously, real-world data can be inaccurate or incomplete. So, like I said, a key component of this challenge is how these limitations constrain or degrade the classification performance, and outcomes should really include metrics on these effects. So this challenge is applicable to a really broad range of analytical problems. So for this reason, details such as vessel type, activity, geographic extent have deliberately been left open-ended. The primary interest of the challenge is really in developing an understanding of the classification methodologies, the different approaches, their limitations, and how they perform over those constrained data sets that we tend to experience. As Scott mentioned, there's more information available on the FrontierSI website and in the challenge documentation, but happy to take any questions through the QA at the end as well. Thanks.
Great, thanks for that, Scott, Eden, Kieran, and Mick. So I'm Laura Spellbrink. I'm the Program Manager at FrontierSI for the 2020 AGO Labs program. So what will you get from us as a participant? The opportunity to demonstrate your capability to AGO and funding to demonstrate your technology. You will also receive access to the subject matter experts from AGO and advice and program management from FrontierSI, as well as quick turnaround times dealing directly with us. As a successful applicant to the AGO Labs program, there is also access to marketing opportunities. We've had really excellent interest in the program so far. So there's opportunity for exposure to a wide group working in the Earth observation and analytics space. So what do we need from you? We need demonstrations of potential capabilities, techniques, and approaches. And as Scott mentioned, we're looking for capabilities that AGO doesn't currently access. So that doesn't mean that it has to be completely new, but it does need to be new to AGO. We'll also ask for your insights into the challenges and opportunities of working with AGO, whether they be technology, relationship, or project related. And we'll ask this from you throughout the course of the project and as part of a final report. We're really keen to ensure that we capture the lessons learned to improve the program moving into the future. So we're seeking flexibility and openness to help AGO to try new ways of approaching these challenges, as well as technology that has a potential path to operational use. So where to next from here? As you know, there is currently a call for proposals open with further information and the application template available on the FrontierSI AGO Labs website. Applications close Friday, the 11th of December at close of business Eastern Time. Applications will then be reviewed by FrontierSI and AGO, and successful applicants will be informed prior to the Christmas break. The projects will initially ideally kick off in January, depending on contracting arrangements, and then will be delivered within a 3 to 6 month timeframe. We'll now move on to the Q&A session. Thanks to all of those who have put your questions in the Q&A function so far. Please keep them coming throughout. Note that we will also be providing a question and answer document on our website as of next week with all the answered questions, as well as any that we may not get to or any questions that are taken on notice. So having a look at the Q&A now, we've had a couple of people ask, will the copy of the presentation slides be available to download? A recording of this webinar will be available on the FrontierSI AGO Labs website as of next week. So you'll be able to access this recording as well as the slides through that recording, and anybody's questions and answers there as well. So those will be available. We've got a question, have any of last year's projects gone beyond the operational testing phase?
Good question. So the answer is not yet. One of the limitations with the structure we had last year is we funded investigation. We didn't fund any additional operational testing. And that's why with this iteration, I guess the attendees today do have the ability to do that. We are looking for some ways to further engage some of the more successful challenge responses from last year, though, yes. So there will be some ongoing work, just not presently.
And just to add to that also highlights the importance of one of the things that Laura was raising about the feedback provided about how the overall program works, how the kind of relationship with AGO works. It was through that kind of feedback that we identified that an additional phase would have been useful to the last program. And so that's why it's there this year. And then hopefully we can take on board more feedback and continue to improve this into the future as well.
Thanks for that, Phil and Scott. This is for challenge 1, a question for that's the challenge when the streets have no name. What data sources and resolution for challenge 1 will be provided?
So I'll fill that one as well. Resolution to be confirmed. AGO does have a commercial, a number of commercial products that it can provide in relation to both challenge 1 and challenge 2 as well, I believe. We'll work with the successful vendors on the volumes and the resolutions of what we can provide, and also the geographic areas of where we're looking as well.
Scott, would it also be fair to say that you'd be happy for people to bring their own data to demonstrate their capability on, rather than needing data for you if they can?
If you've got your own data, that will be a far quicker turnaround than working through our source folk. That's correct, yes.
Thanks. We've got a couple of questions coming through about intellectual property. So can we provide some more information on how intellectual property will be handled?
Phil, I'm pretty sure that with the subcontracts that you guys will be managing on our behalf, there's the identification of both background and foreground IP. Background IP obviously belongs with the owner of it. Foreground IP that's developed as part of the challenges themselves. It's actually developed during the challenge itself. I can't remember where we sat on that one, Phil.
Yep, no worries. I can field that one. So basically, the organisations leading the project retain ownership of that IP. So nothing that you develop here is kind of given away in terms of intellectual property ownership. What the Commonwealth is looking for as part of the project itself is, I guess, is ongoing access to what has been created for, I guess, internal testing type purposes. But that's, again, more around anything that you may deliver to them, and that license excludes any commercial use. So if the technology needs to actually be operationalized, the use of that IP by the Commonwealth would be outside of that term.
And I will just say, if there are any further questions around any particulars of the IP, please feel free to direct them to that email address there, and we can provide you with some more information.
So as part of posting the posting answers to these questions as well online, we'll post a full extract of the current clause of the subcontract around IP to make that kind of crystal clear.
Thanks, Phil. We've got a couple of questions around defence clearance. These are unclassified challenges, so no defence clearance is needed for any of the participants. I don't know if you wanted to mention anything further there, Scott, but a few questions coming through on that one as well.
No, no, these are completely unclassified topics. So yes, no need for any defence clearances on behalf of, I guess, the external parties.
Thanks, Scott. We've got a question here. Can we bring more data if we believe augmentation of additional data can add more value?
Yep.
Yep.
For sure.
Great. Okay. What is the preferred technology readiness level stage for challenge 1? So that is the where the streets have no name. Is road classification such as highway versus easement part of this challenge?
So you can clarify me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think we're looking for road classifications as part of that particular challenge.
Yeah, that's correct, or at least it'd be at a lower priority.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks.
And do you have a comment on the overall TRL level?
I do not. Maybe that's something we can take on notice.
Yeah, so the proposal form itself does ask you, I believe we say that we don't have a target TRL for this, but we do have in there that you should flag what the current technology readiness level of your proposed solution is, as well as whether or not you expect that TRL to improve over the course of the project. And we have on the FrontierSI website a link to an explanation of those technology readiness levels, particularly with relation to spatial technology and the kind of work that we're doing here.
Thanks, Phil. I've got a question here. How will other government agencies access the resulting data sets if they're developed? Will they be made public at all?
That's a good question. So we would certainly like the ability to share what we're doing here with AGO Labs, with other Commonwealth agencies, particularly the Australian intelligence community. So that might be a beneficial thing, but if it's something that you don't necessarily want shared with other agencies, then I guess identify that as part of your proposal response.
Thanks, Scott.
And in terms of those agencies that may want to talk about last year's projects, should they reach directly out to you, Scott, otherwise through us?
Yep, that's right.
A quick question here. Can we respond to more than one challenge?
Sure.
The more the better.
Yes.
For challenge 1, the streets have no name. Is there a particular area that will be under focus? Is there a way to get time from regional experts to validate or rate the quality of the networks that are generated?
Again, I think that's something that we'd probably want to discuss in more detail with the shortlisted, I guess, challenge respondees. We're obviously not going to be looking at any sort of classified target areas. I guess, Australian or allied geographies is where we'd be looking.
Thanks, Scott. I've got a question here around budgeting from the information that's on the FrontierSI website that applicants will be not operating at full commercial rates, but potentially to budget with a project at cost plus about 30% overheads. Can you discuss the intended budgeting any further?
Yeah, sure. I can take that one. So, what we're providing here is essentially a relatively unique opportunity to demonstrate brand new capability and start to develop a relationship and an understanding of what working with defence is like. This is not delivering a commercial service. This is not delivering anything that will be operational or relied upon. This is an opportunity to showcase your capabilities and work towards potential future larger scale opportunities in being able to then deploy that capability with AGO. So as a result, our principle is we would like to fund you to be able to do that. But what we're really funding is the cost that it's going to cost you to do that demonstration. Obviously, there's potentially a nice upside at the end of this for demonstrating quite good technology and approaches. And we're only looking really to cover what it costs you to do that demonstration. Hence the costs of the equipment and the costs of whatever you pay for your staff at the moment, with a standard 30% overhead on top of that.
Thanks, Phil. Just a reminder to anybody else who has any further questions, please put them into the Q&A box just so we can make sure that we can get to all of them. A question regarding whether the challenges apply just to satellite imagery or also to aerial imagery.
No, you can use aerial imagery as yourself. AGO does have more stocks of satellite imagery, though. We did use aerial imagery for one of the challenges last year.
Thanks, Scott. The question is, what is the preferred implementation and technology platform for proposed solutions? Any comments on that?
No. Let's go with technology agnostic.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Yeah. So I think maybe to refine that point as well, we want you to demonstrate your capability, and so we want that capability to be demonstrated on whatever allows you to best showcase what that capability is, rather than needing to worry about porting between different platforms that you may not already be familiar with.
Thanks, Phil. A question perhaps for you here, Phil, on invoicing, monthly or milestone.
Yep. So the contracts are generally milestone based, pretty simply. Though I believe last time we these are only 6-month projects, so we're not looking to overly complicate them. I believe we had a kickoff payment, something for around the midterm review, and then a final deliverable payment. So 3 milestones over the 3 to 6 month period.
Great, thanks for that, Phil. Are there any other questions from any of the attendees that we have here today? So either about the actual challenges themselves for the subject matter experts, or as part of the application process and how the program runs. Please feel free to put them into the Q&A. We've just got a couple left here. If we already have extensive capability in one of the challenge topic areas, is this a benefit, or are you only looking at proof of concept or early development projects?
So no, clearly, if something is a superior or not superior, an advanced capability, we'd be very keen to look at it. If there's an existing commercial arrangement with AGO, then I guess there's no real benefit by getting involved in AGO labs. But if there's something new, then please, yeah, get involved.
Yeah, and I suppose some of that comes down to the interpretation of proof of concept. I guess part of this may be looking to prove a technical concept, but part of what the proof of concept may be is proving that what you've already got works on an AGO challenge.
Yeah, and also just to come back to an earlier comment I think I tried to make, which is that we've got these unclassified challenge topics. We don't know the answers to all of them. If we knew a lot more about these particular topics, then we'd probably go straight to an RFQ process. And that's not what we're looking at here. We are investigating. We're not guaranteeing any ongoing commercial arrangement. Where there's multiple aspects of what we're trying to do, including upskilling our own staff, learning more about the technologies and techniques that are applicable out there, and dealing with introducing both AGO to Australian and New Zealand industry, and in turn finding out some more about what industry has to offer us.
Thanks, Scott. Are there any further comments from from any of the panelists or subject matter experts, anything else that anybody wanted to add? We've come to the end of the questions that have been put into the Q&A function here. So just opening up to any panelists who may have any further comments.
Yeah, could I just jump in about the aerial imagery versus satellite imagery question? Scott's right, last year we did have vendors who used aerial imagery, but we're certainly interested in the application to satellite imagery. So I think in most cases, we would be happy with a demonstrator on aerial imagery and then possibly an extension to satellite imagery. But yeah, we're keen for satellite imagery not to be ignored in the proposals.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Kieran. I've got one question that's come in here for the Streets Have No Name Challenge 1. Is open source elevation data also suitable?
I could defer to Eden, but I believe so. Eden?
Might take this one on notice.
All right, thanks,
Scott.
mate.
Yeah.
Yep. Is there a preferred area of interest in Australia for these challenge topics?
No, again, that's something that we'll talk about once we've had a chance to review the proposal responses.
Yeah, so I'd suggest in terms of what that might mean while you're preparing a proposal, is that you instead focus on, I guess, what size of an investigation area or what number of investigation areas you may be able to achieve for what you're proposing, and then during either contracting or the kickoff meeting, we can then define the specific areas of interest. I'm saying that if you have an area that you think would be a very good demonstration of something like challenge 1 around identifying blockages or a particular event you want to highlight, you may want to put that in as a suggested focus area as part of the proposal as well.
Thanks, Phil. Another question, what sort of objects is AGO interested in for the challenge topic 2, so the low cost object identification?
Yep, so what we did with related topics last year is we looked at a variety of objects such as cranes and aircraft, but yeah, it's certainly open to suggestions from the proposals, noting that it obviously can't be too small. Yeah, we're interested in mobile objects. Kieran, was there anything else that you could think of here?
No, that sounds about right. We're aware of previous work done by SpaceNet to do this for buildings. We're probably more interested, like Scott said, in mobile objects or things a little more complex than buildings. Somewhere in between that and something impossibly small, but not. We're open to suggestions about specific objects.
Thanks, Kieran. So just if anybody has any further questions, we've had one here. Can we repeat what we've said about existing relationships with AGO and what that means about involvement in AGO Labs program?
Sure. So what am I trying to explain here? If you have an existing product that AGO has purchased, and you want to demonstrate it again in AGO Labs, then I guess that's your privilege. Proposals are open to everyone, but note that we are interested in new approaches to some difficult geospatial and machine analytics problem sets. So I guess I'm just trying to qualify that if you've got an existing commercial arrangement with AGO, I would assume that as part of your business development cycle, if you think that you've got a product that can do something for AGO, then you would use your business cycle to advertise it. This is really about looking for novel approaches that we don't know about and and also broadening our understanding of what the wider Australian industry and academia have to offer defence and AGO.
Yeah. So certainly when it came to last year's program, for example, there were so one of the successful project candidates definitely had an existing relationship with AGO, but the solution that they were proposing was something that hadn't been demonstrated to AGO before and was a bit of an emerging capability for them. So that was an appropriate solution rather than something that AGO was already using. So people with an existing relationship, it is fine. It's more about the capability itself.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Phil. This is a question about the round 1 and round 2 of the 2020 AGO Labs. So the 3 challenges that we've mentioned here today for round 1, the question is whether the round 2 challenges have been defined yet.
No, not publicised anyway. We've got some ideas about round 2. We're still developing them.
Thanks, Scott. That brings us to the end of the questions that we have been submitted. So please feel free to add some in at the last minute here. Otherwise, any further comments from panelists?
The only thing from myself is I'm really keen to see the breadth of responses to some of these challenge topics. We were very pleasantly surprised with the pilot program, both the quality of the responses and the number of the responses, and really keen to get a large number of high quality responses this time around as well.
Thanks, Scott, and thank you to all the attendees today for your interest in the program and to AGO and the subject matter experts for making the time this morning. As I mentioned, a recording of the webinar will be made available via the FrontierSI AGO Labs website next week. We really look forward to receiving your applications. As I mentioned, the closing date for applications is the 11th of December. In the meantime, please don't hesitate to get in touch with any queries at all via the contact details that are there on screen. A question and answer document will be put up next week on the FrontierSI website also. And if there's no other final comments from anyone else, I think I will close the webinar there. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day and a good weekend.